Welcome to The Road to Zero, a future-proof podcast, as we explore the changing nature of our economy as we look for prosperity and opportunity in not only preserving, but also improving our environment. Today on The Road to Zero, we have Taylor Leigh Cannizzaro, Chief Alliance Officer of the Plastic Bank. Welcome, Taylor, and it's great to see you again.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Now, before we get into the Plastic Bank, I'd like to know how you got into this whole game of plastics. I think you started from a biotech background.
Yeah, that's correct. An inquiry always to understand things led me down a path of becoming a molecular biologist and a biochemist, especially the biochemist, always how to serve people. It was a function of health and nutrition and obviously preventing cancer, better prognosis and diagnostic and treatment, right? So in that world, helping people survive cancer more effectively in the world of personalized medicine, I became a surfer in San Diego about 6 years ago. And one day I was surfing and a piece of plastic floated by. And given the understanding of the molecular nature of things, my brain went to photodegradation of plastics. It's a bigger problem than even cancer. If the ocean dies, effectively we all die. And so what are we doing about the ending potential of polluting the ocean to an extent that it dies? And so I started becoming interested in that. I started learning a little bit more and asking questions. And in San Diego, I became introduced to some of the team members at Surfrider Foundation there. And it wasn't long before I accepted the role as a volunteer as the chair of the Rise Above Plastics Committee for Surfrider Foundation San Diego. And it was then that I started, again, how do I help people reduce their single use? How do I bring this awareness of what's happening with plastics in the oceans and the environmental catastrophe that's occurring, of course, in our oceans, but also even in landfill and otherwise in our water system? And, it began with a plastic straws suck campaign, a fight the foam, ban the butt, action alerts, petitions, local events, working with city council members. We did ban styrofoam there. I showed up in a full styrofoam costume at City Hall, which was quite entertaining and shocking, but then worked really well given my scientific background to not be that much of a crazy activist. Then I met David 3 years ago, and I joined the company 2 years ago.
Okay. And then tell us, what is the mission of Plastic Bank?
We empower people to prevent ocean plastic. And so really at the core of it is to gather people as well as the material. So to gather together actually is one of our core values, as well as revealing value. So how do we reveal the value of the material and also people so as to dignify recycling? And so by improving the lives of people in extreme poverty, especially, we can stop ocean plastic. So we created a system where the monetary value of the material, so if a piece of plastic is now able to be exchanged for cash, or with our digital-based IBM blockchain technology, goods and services like Wi-Fi, cell phone minutes, education for their kids, cooking fuel, things that people need and can't afford. Now this material, this plastic that's they're letting in their environment can be collected or in fact retained and exchanged for value.
Okay, so using the plastic as a medium of exchange, they can bring it and they get access to all, I hear almost like a digital currency system in place.
Correct. We began our operations in Haiti. Then it was in the Philippines, Indonesia, Brazil, and now Egypt. We're slated for Thailand and expanding into Africa quite soon. So we create kind of a hub and spoke model, if you will, where locations of collection can be recyclers and processors that we return the material to, but there's locations that we collect the material, whether it's a plastic bank operated location, it could even be a community center like a school or a church. We recognize that places of gathering are quite important and natural. So let's optimize and have a multiple outcome inside of collecting the material there and then returning it back into the local processing and recycling in a way to optimize the system and make it really exponential and leverage existing networks. And so as to also economically develop not only the people, but whatever infrastructure that might exist in that country or in that community. And so it really is a function of optimizing and having the informal sectors become more formal in partnership with us, where there's now brand recognition, a sense of stability. Of course, we have a code of conduct, no child labor, things like that. And so it really instills a structure a lot of times where there isn't any. And then rewards with bonuses, of course, on top of market value, additional incentives. And even like in the case of the schools, the children, the families can bring back the material. The children benefit often in a cooperative way. And then also the school benefits, whereas they can also use that money for their materials, for like their pens and paper and things, also the school uniforms. So it really enlivens the communities where we operate. And all of our communities are slightly different based on what infrastructure is there, what needs are needed, of course, needed to be met. And then we're layering in additional partnerships to add value wherever we can.
Okay, so I really get the picture of the collection piece. Now, the processing piece, is that usually in the community, or does the plastic travel far to get reused or go back into the system?
So what happens with the plastic after we collect it?
Yes.
Yeah, so we try to keep as much of the processing in country as possible. And then we partner with companies like Henkel and SC Johnson that purchase the material from us as social plastic. So that's a brand name as well as this plastic bank. So those are our two kind of brand categories. So social plastic is a material whose value is transferred into the hands of the people who encounter it. So the material is taken back to the local processors, recyclers, and then when necessary and however occurs to get into the supply chain of our partners, we then will ship the material to maybe a converter or whatever the next person in the supply chain is, to then process it into their supply chain, that then it can be made into whatever product, whatever good, or even, can be clothing for that matter. As we did with Hugo Boss, the social plastic was woven into the backpacks and hats and hoodies. So then it gets reincorporated into packaging, reincorporated into goods and products as social plastic. And that acts as a brand activation for the companies we partner with, and then consumer engagement for these people who can now choose products that have environmental and social good over those that don't, right? So if you have a choice of shampoo bottle A, again, I'll use Henkel as an example, where they have their Nature Box and Fall shower gel is made out of social plastic, or Coty, and not Wella and We Do. It's the We Do Act brand. It's a professional hair care brand where they're doing more of an impact program. So every bottle you buy, it prevents 8 bottles from entering the ocean. So you can choose one of these two companies' shampoo and hair care products, as opposed to ones that don't have social environmental impact, in a way to stewardship as a consumer business, right? You can actually, and Paul Pullman from Unilever said, you can boycott versus boycott those products that have environmental and social impact related to them. So inside of our purchasing power, we can then influence the market and how business is done. So it really is, a way to engage everyone. How can everyone participate in what's occurring in the oceans? Full circle.
Really here, by buying their product, you're literally taking this waste out of the ocean. So you found a way to actually economically have a reason why people can take it out. And then I'm curious, because basically what happens with these companies is, instead of using virgin materials, more petrochemicals, they're using this waste plastic in their system. Now, how does it compare, just on a cost perspective, of the cost of reusing plastic versus taking new petrochemical product, just to get an idea of the cost comparison?
Yeah, great question. Of course, there's a margin, because that margin is what we use to actually pay the collectors. So you have the price of virgin plastic, you have the price of recycled plastic, you have, I guess, a category of ocean-bound plastic, and you have social plastic, which is its own category. You even have bioplastic, right? In there, it's slightly different, of course. And so the market prices are always fluctuating. So our
Yeah.
price of our plastic is respective to that, with a margin on top that does go to our collector members, that goes to our business, allows our operations, the infrastructure of the development of all of that. That margin is grossly dependent on the country of origin, where it's
Yeah.
being shipped to, what's the volume, what's the forecast, what's the type of material, and all those variables. So I really couldn't say what is that margin, but of course there is
Mm.
one.
Yeah, there's one. Yeah. And I hear also if the plastics used locally, that margin could be less. And especially if that's a country that has a higher price to bring in petrochemicals, then the margin's even less in that case. So I
Yeah.
get the variability in
Well,
it.
what's fascinating is, we're starting to tax virgin plastic, which is going to become really great. And I
Yeah.
think in Europe, by the summer, from my understanding, there's going to be a solid tax. And so that's going to start to normalize, and what
Mm.
we've been wanting to see, right? How can we turn off the tap of virgin plastic production
Yeah.
and loss in the environment to truly empower the circular economy? And so if we start to see the tax of virgin plastic, then now all of a sudden recycled plastic and social plastic are not like that much of a stretch, right? So we almost even can even start to see where social plastic could be offered at the exact same price of recycled plastic. And so that's really the direction we want to start to see that we get to go, because effectively we can alleviate and end poverty and effectively clean the oceans and environment and stop landfill even, by the fact that if every piece of material that was used was worth $5, maybe to you and I's reference here in the Western world, how much would you see in the environment? Right. And so we
Yeah.
try to do that in country by gamifying recycling, and through our platform, we actually can. So you say, okay, like let's change the price of the PET to this much per kilogram and incentivize the collection of it. Or say we have a partner that is keenly interested in, obviously we want to collect all materials, but if we have a partner or a need for an increase in collection of Y material, we can say, okay, we're going to pay a bonus or an additional price per kilogram of that material for this time period. We can really become like the candy crushers of recycling in an area where we operate.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, and I love that piece of the externalities, right? Because that's the problem with our current economy. A lot of these aren't captured, right? Because this stuff just goes right out in the dump or the ocean, and there's no, even if there was like a deposit you paid at least just to make sure it comes back, but we don't really have that for a lot of our plastic products. And the ones you do, at least they tend to come back more. But yeah, leveling the playing field. So what I hear, your plastics would be exempt from those kind of taxes, from what you can see.
From virgin plastic, yes, because it's recycled and it has a social component, right? So it's not, it goes a step beyond recycled and even a step beyond ocean bound, because
Yeah.
ocean bound plastic, one might argue is taking advantage of a marketing story to say it came from the ocean. And so it's, engaging people. But why we're 3 times the United Nations awarded as a root cause solution to ocean plastic is because we go upstream and prevent the ocean plastic from occurring in the first place, again, by
Mm,
empowering people. So
yeah.
in that way, it's, again, we look at the SDGs, right? The first one is no poverty. And so when we look at that, we can say, okay, when we remedy poverty, the rest of the SDGs start to remedy themselves as a function of order of importance. And so ocean plastic is actually a symptom of human poverty. And when we address that, then it figures itself out. So it's important to look at what is that root cause of what's occurring, and in that way, then we can kind of normalize all the material. And as far as collection goes, like here, for example, where there's a deposit, and I know Canada just, I think was it last year, increased the 5 cent to 10 cent, I think, for the deposit, because I think now the 5 cent is the equivalent of a 1 cent because they did away with the 1 cent. Um, and so we can continue to increase what that value is. But one thing we would love to see occur is anytime there's a bottle deposit program, we can transfer that value into areas of extreme poverty. Because for me, 10
Mm,
cents doesn't really mean a lot, right? But for
no.
someone in Haiti, for someone in Indonesia living in the slums, that means a lot. And so we can actually transfer value around the world, especially through our blockchain.
Yeah, and tell me more about the blockchain, because does that tie into a certification program as well? Like, what's that? Because I know that's the latest and greatest technology. So I'm just curious to see what it's giving you, or what you're getting out of this blockchain technology.
Yeah, you can think of the blockchain just like a digital ledger. So it tracks and like, has a history and audit trail of every transaction that's ever occurred. So where we operate, all you need is a smartphone and a digital scale to create a transaction. So it logs the amount that was paid per kilogram and the volume that was received. And in that way, we can say, okay, this community has collected this much. We've distributed this many bonuses and that much, price per kilogram, whatever, right? Per community, per country. So it really acts as a way for us as a company to verify our impact, we'll never be able to be labeled as greenwashing because we have a complete auditable system.
Mm.
For the collection member, it's very powerful because, our collectors, they are able to have, whether they have a phone or not, their account exists for them. So if they don't have a phone, but you'd be surprised how many people can't feed themselves, but they have a phone. It's kind of wild that way, but they have a bank account. So most people who have in these areas have no birth certificate, no ID card. They can't get a bank account. Well, now with our blockchain, they have their own account. So what we see is typically people want the cash immediately because they don't know us yet, trust us. But once they've done a few exchanges, then they'll leave a little bit of money in there. And now they have a savings account for the first time. And so that's why a bank called Lombard ODA, it's an over 100-year-old Swiss bank, partnered with us, where they're very interested in creating financial opportunity and literacy for people, right? Really a function of bringing the billion online that we can teach. It's not really even teaching, it's just an entrainment, right? It's like shifting the context. One, if the material is valuable, this pays for my children's school pays for our food. I don't have to tell anyone. We don't have to tell anyone how to recycle or that they should recycle. It's like, okay, hang on, I get value, so I'm just going to recycle now, basically. And then two, now all of a sudden they're like, recycling or bringing the material more and more to us. And now they have a set of consistency, bringing the material over a certain amount of time. We can start to assign like a trust score, if you will. And then if they bring new community members in as well, then we can kind of incentivize that. So it's to really create, stewards in communities, right? The children are impact ambassadors, also teaching their parents and telling them how they should, participate in this as well. And so it becomes a real community entrainment. It's a women's empowerment function where a lot of women will try to save money, but maybe their husbands will drink it away. They can actually store it in the platform. And then for the recyclers and processors, they have a version of a login that they can also optimize. A lot of times, in these areas, they might be using like a notebook for, all the material that's going through their facility. At best, they're using an Excel document. And now they can use the blockchain and the platform. It's called Alchemy to do that. Now, the next phase is to engage people like you and I and everybody listening to this. So soon the Alchemy platform will have an effective login interface that can gamify even our behavior here and then do what I said before, transfer that value in a way into these areas where we operate. So the roadmap to that platform development is pretty exciting to really create a path of purpose for everyone that interacts with our community.
Yeah, I love how it's not just environmental. Like I hear what even the system, you're bringing a financial system where it doesn't exist. People have accounts, they can save. It's like you said, empowering women. That's huge. And even some of these business, I hear, even digitizing some of their operations and really enabling certifications too. Our company could say, hey, we bought X amount of this, and here's the actual impact out there. This much money got given out to these people. Yeah. And so it's a very all-encompassing system. And what I hear is, you might pay a bit more for the plastic, but there's these massive community impacts and massive brand recognition inside of that.
Yeah, like we can take Grove Collaborative as another case example, great partner of ours. They're the first plastic neutral retailer in the world. They're not the only anymore, but they're the first, which is really beautiful in partnership with us. And so every product you buy from their online platform is plastic neutral. And so we can then say, okay, they're not purchasing the plastic from us, but for every kilogram of plastic that is sold in the products that they sell, they're offsetting that to be neutral. And then at the end of the year, we can go back and say, okay, what was your impact in Indonesia and the Philippines? What communities were participating? And pull out some beautiful collector stories, which you'll be seeing in the upcoming months, from Grove Collaborative sharing some of their successes in partnership with us and the impact that partnering with us has created for them, that they can then share also, not only for Grove as a company, the staff of Grove Collaborative, but then every person who buys a Grove Collaborative product also participates in. And I can't say what the milestone is yet, but next month we're going to be releasing a very big milestone as a function of how much impact we've had to date. That is unprecedented by any of our partners and colleagues in the space.
Amazing. And I love that term. I haven't heard that too often, but plastic neutral. So that's carbon neutral, but I love that idea of plastic neutral. And tell me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing, there's two ways to participate here. One is, you buy the actual plastic so that in your supply chain, you're using this new plastic. But if with some of your plastic neutral people, just by providing that, let's say they pay for enough, the same equivalent amount of plastic that they're putting in the market, virgin plastic, they're pulling the same amount that then gets reused somewhere else. Is that another means to be plastic neutral?
Correct. And that was very smart of you to pull that out. So yeah, you can purchase the social plastic, and sometimes, it's just not realistic or feasible to put the social plastic, or it doesn't work for whatever reason for the company. And so they'll say, okay, we don't want to use the social plastic itself, but we want to participate. So then they might choose to be plastic neutral or have an impact. It doesn't actually need to be an exact correlation to the impact the plastic that they've produced. It could just be, for the case of the example of the bank, they don't even make plastic. So
Yeah.
the bank, how they participate with us is they say, okay, a percent of the management fees of this particular product of ours will go back to Plastic Bank as education for the youth as school bursars. So they're making a contribution and effectively making an investment, right? If you really think about it too, it's really beautiful that way, into that country to end poverty in a generation or two to come, when those youth now are educated and can, act and speak from their head as opposed from their heart, and really create a sustainable roadmap for, ending poverty. So there's a lot of different ways we can approach it. I might add too, so you can think about like a social impact program, plastic neutrality. And then there's like kind of going above and beyond that, where you can be plastic positive or plastic regenerative, where companies might say, okay, I want to prevent more plastic than we're consuming, so that they can even go above and beyond, which one might argue is kind of the next generation of, especially consumers, what they're demanding these companies to do, because we need to be doing not just, okay, equalizing the damage we did last year or this year, but we actually need to be preventing more. We need to be regenerating, right? We need to be replacing or replenishing or rejuvenating the damage that's been done. And so in that way, the Greta generation too is like, okay, demonstrate to us, show us, like, how are you doing that? And so in that way, you might think that like sustainability is kind of, I don't want to say it's dying, but it's definitely not enough anymore, right? We have to take the next step. And so regeneration is really that next step. And we have partners that choose to partner with us anywhere along that spectrum, and they get to choose how they want to show up and what they want to communicate and what claim and what impact and what community and what way in which they want to participate with us.
Yeah. So I really hear there's the whole piece of using this virgin plastic to really pull out of the ocean and into your products.
Using the social plastic.
Yeah, using social plastic. And I really hear participating in the neutral sense, where you might not be using your plastic, but at least you're offsetting that same amount or more of plastic in the environment. And people who don't even use plastic, they can actually get plastic out of the ocean and really contribute to human welfare throughout the world in the poor areas.
Exactly. And they can choose to say, like, even if it's a glass product, for example, like we have Pure Brewing in San Diego. They're, good friends of mine. And when they were supporting a lot of the efforts I was doing with Surfrider Foundation, and when I joined Plastic Bank, they're like, okay, how do we participate? And they have a Pounds for Pints initiative. So for their production of their tropical mist beer, they're preventing ocean plastic. So every time, you're drinking their beer in that particular ale, you're participating in preventing the 20,000 kilograms plus that they commit to prevent every year. So it's fascinating the ways in which that you can get creative in participation.
Yeah, and I love how it's that double impact, because it's not just a charity furthering people, but it really is having an impact on the environment at the same time. And it's a beautiful mechanism of marrying the two together, right? You get kind of a double bang for your buck, right? You're not just helping Parva, you're helping the environment, the ocean.
Yeah, we are a social enterprise, so we are a for-profit business, and yeah, I mean, it's the social all the more why people will partner with us too. Again, because they want the human story, they want the human connection, and especially during these times of COVID, we're so separated, and we want to do good by people and be of service all the more. And so by helping people and helping others, you help yourself, and when you help the ocean, you're also helping yourself. And so you really start to see the interconnected nature of
Yeah.
it all, and can do your part. We all can.
Yeah, no, I love it. Opportunity all around. And what is next for the plastic bank? What's the next initiative you guys are taking on?
Yeah, well, so we're material agnostic, right? Because of the platform, that's the beauty. In some places, we do collect paper and aluminum, but it's really what is that next material for us that we will go to scale in a way that will have social aluminum or social paper or whatever that could end up being. So I think for us, we're taking an inventory of that. Um, with licensing our platform and how we can enable others to utilize what we've created without us needing to be there, so that we can be everywhere faster. Like, we started in areas of extreme poverty because that's where the ocean plastic is most assiduously entering at alarming rates. And we get to be in North America, we get to be in South America, we get to be everywhere as fast as we can, in a way that we don't have to be a bottleneck to actually facilitate it, that we can actually leverage partnerships and people in order to be even just that much more exponential. So we're actively right now looking for investors. We actually, for the first time, have opened up that opportunity. And really, really will be taking it to the next level exponentially around the world in the upcoming years. The growth rate is something I've seen ramping over the last couple of years, and even in 2021, we're in almost month 4. I've seen our income and impact increase in a way that I haven't the whole time. So we're really hitting that ramp right now where we're snowballing in a beautiful way. And when we do more business, then that means that we actually get to put more hands in the money of people, hands of the people.
That's beautiful. And then how much plastic, do you guys have the figure? How much plastic have you guys taken out of the environment?
We're doing well, that's tied into our milestones. That's about to happen next month, so I can't say. But I'd say we're doing about 1 million kgs a month.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm excited, and that's through COVID too. So
Yeah.
in the next upcoming months, next year, like, we really spent the time to go deep and develop the infrastructure. We have over 20,000 members in our platform right now. And we want to double that. We want to triple that as fast as we can. But having that system, that model, that infrastructure where we can do it now in 5 different countries has given us the leverage to say, okay, now we want to do it here, 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 and here, and with this partner. And when we partner with companies and nonprofits and entities on the ground already existing, it makes us that much more exponential and lowers the opportunity level to enter a new country, because a lot of times opening a new country is the most resource intensive, unfortunately. And so what we're finding is we can lower that by having the right partners. So if anybody's listening to this and you're interested in partnering, please welcome to contact me and or a representative of the company, because we're really in a collaboration economy.
Okay, perfect. Any specific areas you're targeting or countries you're targeting?
Yeah, Thailand, Cameroon, Nigeria, and a handful others in Africa. I would say Vietnam was a really strong potential. We've seen a couple of challenges with the platform at this point. So it's kind of stopped us right now. It has put us into a pause. we'd love to be in India. India gives us a little, again, talk about pause, like the strategy there and how to do India well. It's such a beautiful, powerful, big country to take on. So, Colombia has been in the mix a bit, but I think acutely, newly, and soon would be Thailand and Cameroon, and then moving further into Africa.
Okay, perfect. So anybody from those countries that go on your website? What's the website? It's
Plasticbank.com.
okay. So
Yeah.
go contact Taylor and set up some collaborations.
Yeah, and anybody who's listening is welcome to email me. I'm Taylor at plasticbank.com. Of course, you can find me on LinkedIn, Taylor Leigh Cannizzaro. I'm happy to connect. I really believe in the power of relationships. Nick and I, we met through relationships and building team and leadership techniques and strategies and ways in which that we can be more effective in the world. So, it really is about the people and the conversations you can have.
Yeah, it really is. Well, thank you very much for joining this conversation today, and I really wish you luck, and I hope it continues expanding exponentially for you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And to everyone who's listening, just thank you for being here. Thank you for watching and following Nick, and for being, interested in this conversation. It's the way of the future.
All right. Thank you, Taylor. To hear more about our podcasts, showcase events, or the Future Proof Network, please visit us at www.futureproof-network.com.